Amen. Yeah, let's move on with the reading. I guess I'm going to take the lead in the reading for now. Is that okay for you? Yes? Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Okay. That is going to be, again, in the book of Genesis, from the actually the whole book called the Expositions of the Holy Scripture by Alexander Maclaren. We're still in Genesis. I think we're talking about Joseph. This chapter. Let me read the number of chapters. Genesis 37, 23 to 36. The title is this portion is a man's passion and God's purpose. And it came to pass when Joseph was come unto his brethren. Actually, I want to read the portion from in 37, the whole chapter. We're going to read from a NESB version. Okay, so I want to read a greater context in the thing. Is that okay for you? So the whole chapter, the story,
Yeah, of course.
words dimension. So Joseph's dreams. Now Jacob lived in the land where his father lived as a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the records, the generations of Jacob. Joseph, when he was 17 years of age. Is that amazing? Okay. Was pasturing the flock with his brothers. While still a youth, along with the sons of Belham, and the sons of Zelpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought back a bad report about them to the father. Now Israel allowed Joseph more than all his other sons because he was the son of his old age. It made him a multicolored tunic. It's a full-long tunic. Okay, so or full-long tunic. So multicolors is also full length. It basically one of the way to describe a certain kind of a special dress that it was given in rich people. This is the one the detail I want to mention. To almost like officially identify here. You understand, as many times we mentioned in the ancient times, dressing code is very strict. It's actually by dressing different ones, or allowed to be dressed in certain ways, signifies class or facial responsibility or assignment in a family. This occasion, as I shared with you, sounds of a rightful wife that is not a slave woman in a sense, are hugely differentiated within privilege and expectations in the family setting than the sons of a concubine or a slave woman in a sense. Make it sense to you? So am I making sense to you? So yeah, they have different standing in a community, especially in a family. So therefore, it's the right kind of clothes that everybody is supposed to dress. I mean, as a rightful heir in those cultures, not that uniquely Jacob just made a particular thing for his beloved son. For sure, it fit a certain, that's because he loves his son in a unique way. That's why he gives us an endowment. So, but most importantly, it was an exhortation of the law on Rachel, who passed away and left a son. He wanted to honor. It's interesting here mentioned 17 years. So it was not necessarily that he was aware or somehow in the beginning. By this time we know Joseph was not necessarily, born after he moved out. Laban is born rather earlier, quite early. My point is, in this place, Jacob's family can come more and more into order. He began to introduce certain kind of endowment, try to do things in a proper way. and it causes friction with the kind of structures life in that setting. So am I making sense to you? And Joshua was innocent about it and caused a lot of trouble. So let's move on. And for his brother saw his father loved him more than all his brothers. That love is affectionate love. More than that is expressed as endowment, right? So dress differently, give different privilege in family. So they hated him and could not speak to him on friendly terms. There's a breaking down or in peace, in other words. So they are breaking down a family, different sons, different families. I mean, talking about the wives, right, with their sons. This is a common Asian society. I came from China. Those are oftentimes is the stories of a novel, stories of a history, real happened. It's a terrible phenomenon. So it's not unique to this Asian time in this location, located in the family. It's one of the things is the old Asian cultures when you have many wives, different classes of people in a family. This often is the case. Okay, so am I making sense to you? So and I tried to highlight that because it's not necessarily fully understood or aware in American mind in this day, in this age. So 5 said that then Joshua had a dream. It had been told his brothers. He hid him. You know the story. We're going to move on from there. So, so they plotted against him. They sold him. We're not going to read that whole story. You know the story. The portion I want to mention is a mini color code. What actually look like. I don't believe it's a patchwork. It's rather a weaved work. Okay, it's the things that weave together. In those days, patchwork is like beggars. So they don't do patchwork. So nobleman, rich man, they weave things together to represent that they are not beggars. So they represent they are rich and they use a lot of work into the garments they wear. So it's a class thing. Okay, so it's a common phenomenon in China as well. Patch thing together, even the colorful is actually beggars. It represents the begging, begging patch thing together. They barely have clothes around. That's not the way that Asian ways to identify a noble person or rich person's garment making. You understand my point? It's we require weaving together is always a sign for the garment is high standard. So that's why it's important. It's this tradition carried on later on in the time when set up the noble garments and a glory, garment of glory and distinction for the priests. So you can read those things in the books of Moses when talking about the how the garment or a holy priest. So anyway, where we're back in this book. Okay, we're not going to read these things at all. I'm gonna actually read the back to this reading. Okay, so sorry, I'm a little bit. You can see my mind jumbling all around. Sorry, so and anyway, and it came to pass back to this book when Joshua was come unto his brethren, they stripped Joshua out his coat and his coat many colors that was on him, and they took him and cast him into a pit. And the pit was empty. Many color, obviously, most likely 7 colors. Symbolic speaking, as I move ahead for the commentary here, speaking about the 7 spirit endowed of a son, that is the Son of God, later days. They cast into pit most likely is symbolic speaking about angels, dishonored the Lord, dishonored the choice God made through his sons. He will give honor and glory to humanity, to man he created. So there's a lot of things going on. Symbolism, you can study yourself. Then let's go on with the main theme of the story. Okay, so the cast in the pit. The pit means a place of judgment, a place of death, a place of locked in like a dungeon. So you can see later Dave talking about the devil and his agents and those unfaithful men as well, who don't believe in God, obey God, they were cast in the pit, am I right? So like in the bath. So this is a whole picture. You can see a lot of prophetic and symbolic imagery here. And the pit was empty and there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread. Later on, talking about the waterless pit, So actually, let's refer a little bit, just to give you an imagery. This is so important. Talking about the song that was pierced, the Son of God. But it's going to be in 9th chapter. Turn to in the day where they were born in Zechariah. Zechariah said they were born as the only begotten son, So, but there is a 9th chapter here that in 11. Said, as for you also, speaking of Judah, Ephraim, because the blood covenanted with you, Ephraim is actually Joshua's son, right? So Judah is the one actually laid on saved Benjamin, so rather want to die, redeem Benjamin. Anyway, I have set your prisoner free from the waterless pit. That's the context where they came from. The water pit is like a cistern those days. Okay, so freed from the prison pit. It's talking to Joseph's story of life here. So return, because they almost killed Joseph by throwing him in the pit. So they deserve the punishment in a sense. So God said, no, I will forgive you. I set you free from it because I redeemed you from it. This very day, I am declaring that I will restore, that I redeem you back to your right portion double. That's the firstborn, the right. It's basically said, I will treat you all as my firstborn. Moses is the feared one, like Joseph was among the brothers. Said, I will bend Judah as my bow. I will fill the bow with Ephraim. That's how he gave them a fatherly law and a fatherly endowment. Serve your sons Zion. In other places, speaking about, the people will wake up, the Jews will wake up, recognize they have actually, pierced the ones that like the only begotten son, speaking. This is the same book, okay, prophetic imagery. Now back to the reading of the scriptures in Genesis. As they sat down to eat the bread, they lifted up their eyes and looked, behold, a company of Ishmaelites. You know what Ishmaelites came from, right? They are a different tribe after God allowed Abraham to dismiss Hagar, the Ishmael. Therefore, they are living in the neighboring regions. They came from Gilead with the camels, bring spicery and balm, the myrrh, spices, balm, the myrrh, going to carry down to Egypt. This is the Asian trade route already opened up those days. And Judah said to his brother, what a profit it is if we slay our brother and conceal his blood. Blood, waterless pit. That was obviously in the prophet Zechariah's back his mind when he prophesied. Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites. Let our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And the brother were content. Now, obviously, Judah here spared, was instrumental in saving Joseph's life. Most likely, he has a love and a compassion towards this young lad. Then there passed by Midianites merchantmen. They drew him and lifted up Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returned to the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and rent his clothes. So Robin was the old brother, supposed to be responsible for everybody's being. And the other young brothers conspired behind his back, and he was, tried to save him the lesson. I don't think he wanted to kill him. So Robin did a kind of word as well, as a big brother is supposed to do. He wanted to leave Joseph out of the pit. He was not in the pit. He rent his clothes. He returned to his brother and said, "The child is not, whither shall I go?" And they took Joseph's coat and killed the goats and dipped the goats in the blood. This is obviously a story of Passover, salvation. Slay the lamb in a sense. And they sent the coat of many colors and brought to the fathers and said, "This we found, no hope. Now whether it be thine son's coat or no." And they knew it, and they said, "It's my son's coat, and evil beasts have devoured him." Very interesting symbolic story. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces, and Jacob rent his clothes, put a sackcloth on his loins, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. The same story talking about the Rachel refused to be comforted. All right? In Jeremiah, let's read that. It's the same story, okay? It's always centered. The son was lost. The firstborn son was lost. Okay, let's turn with Jeremiah. I think in 32, no, in 31, that's going to be, where is it? Help me out a little bit. Said Rachel refused to be comforted. Yeah, look at this. Okay, so 31. Oh, here we go. Said in 14 said, I'm sorry, in in 14 said, 31:14 Jeremiah, "I will refresh the soul of the praise with abundance. My people will satisfy with my goodness, declare the Lord." This is what the Lord said. Continue going on. A prophecy here, in a prophecy. "A voice is heard in Ramah, lamenting and bitter weeping. Rachel is weeping for her sons. She refused to be comforted for her children, because they are no more." This is what the Lord said. It continued talking about Ephraim being God's dear son. 21, for example. Is Ephraim my dear son? Is he a delight child? Talking about then God disciplined the son, restored the son. Here is a lot of history there, referring to this story in Joseph, okay, in Genesis, concerning Joseph with his brothers. I don't want to expound it to try to give you the threads for you to link together and ponder those things. And so Jacob refused to be comforted. He said, "For I will go down into the grave," that is, go to the pit, "until my son mourning." Thus his father wept for him, and the Midianites sold him in Egypt into Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's, and kept in the guard. You know the story now. Let's move on with the reading. Okay. Actually, I want to read from here. You had a better voice today, and my voice is a little bit jumbled. So yeah.
You're talking about the book reading or in the Bible?
Book reading. Yeah,
Okay.
from here on. Yeah.
All right. So we read the scripture, I guess. So we'll start with his exposition.
Thank you for your patience with me. Okay, so yeah.
Oh no, it's not. Yeah.
Making sense to you, right? The thing I shared with you making sense. I didn't expound, so yeah. Go ahead.
All right. We have left the serene and lofty atmosphere of communion and saintship far above us. This narrative takes us down to foul depths. It is a hideous story of vulgar hatred and cruelty. God's name is never mentioned in it, and he is as far from the actor's thoughts as from the writer's words.
To living the pagan way, am I right? A worldly way.
Yep.
Remind us of a Cain and Abel story
Yep.
played out again, so it's sad, Abraham not far away, right? Just 2 generations apart. So go ahead.
Crime of the brothers is the subject, and the picture is painted in dark tones to each large truths about sin. Number 1. The broad teaching of the whole story, which is ever being reiterated in Old Testament incidents, is that God works out his great purposes through even the crimes of unconscious men. There is an irony, if we may so say, in making the hatred of these men the very means of their brother's advancement and the occasion of blessing to themselves. As coral insects work, not knowing the plan of their reef, still less the fair vegetation and smiling homes which it will one day carry, but blindly building it from the material supplied by the ocean, a barrier against it. So even evildoers are carrying on God's plan, and sin is made to counterwork itself and be the black channel through which the flashing water of life pours. Joseph's words, Genesis 1:20, give... Wait, why Genesis 1:20? I don't understand
that. No, why? Sorry.
Joseph's words give the point of view for the whole story. He thought evil against me.
Oh, 120 is in this chapter. Verse, I'm not sure either. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
He thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to save much people alive. We can scarcely forget the still more wonderful example of the same thing in the crime of crimes, when his brethren slew the Son of God, like Joseph, victim of envy. And by their crime, God's counsel of mercy for them and for all was fulfilled. Number 2. Following the narrative, verses 23, 24, and 25 show us the poisonous fruit of brotherly hatred. The family, not the nation, is the social unit in Genesis. From the beginning, we find the field on which sin works is the family relation. Cain and Abel, Ishmael and Isaac, Esau and Jacob, and now the other children of Jacob and Joseph, attest the power of sin when it enters there, and illustrate the principle that the corruption of the best is the worst. The children of Rachel could not be but hated by the children of other mothers. Jacob's undisguised partiality for Joseph was a fault too, which wrought like yeast on the passions of his wild sons. The long-sleeved garment which he gave to the lad probably meant to indicate his purpose to bestow on him the right of the firstborn.
The many colors is other translation. The same word is actually long sleeves. Okay, a long garment, basically full-length garment. Yeah, so it's many colors is one translation. The other actually means a full-length garment. Those full-length garment is weird. As a talking, you don't need to manual labor, and right, when you do land labor, you wear short clothes, short coats outside. Make it sense here? That's my point. So yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so the violent rage which it excited was not altogether baseless. The whole miserable household strife teaches the rottenness of the polygamous relation on which it rested, and the folly of paternal favoritism. So it carries teaching especially needed then, but not out of date now. The swift passage of the purely inward sin of jealousy, of jealous envy, into the murderous act as soon as opportunity offered, teaches the short path which connects the inmost passions with the grossest outward deeds. Like Jonah's gourd, the smallest seed of hate needs but an hour or two of favoring weather to become a great tree, with all obscene and blood-seeking birds croaking in its branches. Whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer. Therefore, the solemn need for guarding the heart from the beginnings of envy and for walking in love. The clumsy contrivance for murder without criminality, which Reuben suggested, is an instance of the shallow pretext with which the sophistry of sin fools men before they have done the wrong thing. Sin's mask is generally dropped very soon after. The bait is useless when the hook is well in the fish's gills. Don't let us kill him. Let us put him into a cistern.
Yeah.
He cannot climb up this bottle-shaped smooth sides. But that is not our fault. Nobody will ever hear his muffled cries from its depths. But there will be no blood on our hands. It was not the first time, nor is it the last, that men have tried to blink their responsibility for the consequences which they hoped would come of their crimes. Such excuses seem sound when we are being tempted, but as soon as the rush of passion is past, they are found to be worthless. Like some cheap castings, they are only meant to be seen in front, and they are rounded and burnished. Get behind them, and you find them hollow.
What does burnish means? Let me see. Something
Rounded and smooth and
smooths it out. Okay. Okay.
They sat down to eat bread, Thomas Fuller fitly says. With what heart could they say grace, either before or after the meat?
Yeah, that
What a
was
great
like
meal.
unconscious, tormented all the rest of their life, actually, so yeah.
And what an indication of their rude natures, seared consciences, and deadened affections. This picture of the moral condition of the fathers of Jewish tribes is surely a strong argument for the historical accuracy of the narrative. It would be strange if the legends of a race, instead of glorifying, should blacken the characters of its founders. No motive can be alleged which would explain such a picture. Its only explanation is its truth. The ugly story, too, throws vivid light on that thought which prophets ever reiterated, not for your sakes, but for my namesake. The divine choice of Israel was grounded not on merit, but on sovereign purpose. And the undisguised plainness of the narrative of their sins is but of a piece with the tone of Scripture throughout. It never palliates the faults even of its best men. It tells its story without comment. It never indulges in condemnation any more than in praise. It is a perfect mirror. Its office is to record, not to criticize. Many misconceptions of Old Testament morality would have been avoided by keeping that simple fact in view. 3. The ill-omened meal is interrupted by the sudden appearance, so picturesquely described, of the caravan of Ishmaelites with their loaded camels. Dothan was on or near the great trade route to Egypt, where luxury, and especially the custom of embalming, opened a profitable market for spices. The traders would probably not be particular as to the sort of merchandise they picked up on their road, and such an unconsidered trifle as a slave or two would be neither here nor there. This opportune advent of the caravan sets a thought buzzing in Judah's brain, which brings out a new phase of the crime. Hatred darkening to murder is bad enough, but hatred which also has an eye to business and makes a profit out of a brother is a shade or two blacker, because it means cold-blooded calculation and selfish advantage.
That's terrible, right? Don't care his life at all. Oh, man.
Judah's cynical question avows the real motive of his intervention. He prefers the paltry gain from selling Joseph to the unprofitable luxury of killing him.
Well, that's doubtful. I don't think he actually is for money. I think he tried to see his life, maybe. So, some other interpretation. I prefer that one myself. So, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It brings in regard to brotherly ties at the end, as a kind of homage paid to propriety, as if the obligations they involved were not broken as really by his proposal as by murder. Certainly it is strange logic which can say in one breath, let us sell him, he was our brother, and finds the clause between buffer enough to keep these two contradictories from collision.
It was said Simon, another son, was a very ruthless man. Late on, it was obliterated his name as one of the tribe listed in Revelation. Let's look at it. So, it's an interesting topic. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritties, but I do want to share that with you. So let's see in Revelation 7 chapter, talking about the 144,000, and give a list, a composition based on the 12 tribes. And let's look at these tribes. There's a list in 4 verses from there. Judah, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh. Oh, there's a Simon. Okay, not Simon. What is the other one? Either there's a tribe missed. That's Dan. Okay, Dan was missing. Okay, the tribe of Simon, 12, Levi. You can see Ishkar, Zebulun, and from the tribe of Joseph, from the tribe of Benjamin. Is that amazing? So Manasseh is listed with Joseph. And do you see Ephraim? I don't see Ephraim. Obviously, that's actually Joseph. So then the tribe of Dan is missing. So there are some suspicions. I don't actually know whether that's historical true or not. That those committed brotherly hatred and murderers instigated the whole thing. Later on, actually being obliterated from this list. So that's an interesting theory. But let's move on. So.
If any touch of conscience made the brothers prefer the less cruel alternative, one can only see here another illustration of the strange power which men have of limiting the work of conscience, and of the fact that when a greater sin has been resolved on, a smaller one gets to look almost like a virtue.
Is that
Perhaps
amazing?
Judah and the rest actually thought themselves very kind and brotherly. They put their brother into strangers' power. So went back to their meal with renewed cheerfulness, both because they had gained their inn without bloodshed and because they had got the money. They did not think that every tear and pang which Joseph would shed and feel would be laid at their door.
Do you have any comments on this paragraph, this notion, in a backdrop of today's world, today's society?
I think it is certainly applicable because it's not confined to the particular instance, the action of the sin that is taking place in the story here, but it's kind of a natural pattern, it seems, as I think he's implying it is.
I recently, pay a little bit of attention to the January 6th, the hearing. I don't encourage you to entangle with those things, but talking about the inner circle of the former presidents, how gradually everyone changed their attitudes towards him and become a complacent. Right? What is the word? Complicit, whatever the word. And there are those that linger around in the end of the day, still around his administration, in time made poor decisions. They almost like try to prove their innocence and virtue in a sense. Got a lot of criticism. People, I'm not saying they're doing good or bad. That's not my care. My care is there's a little bit the protest and the testimony offered. While they disagree with the policies, the tendencies, and the things that are moving around, but each one tried to say, no, I didn't do much. I disagree. All their conscience is not clean. They know it's wrong, but their protest is that I didn't really, do anything. In a sense, it's legally wrong. While allow the whole thing run to downhill. I'm not criticizing political. It's not the point of view. I'm talking about this human nature. This sin consciousness, this self-deluded way of justifying when you are in the company, in the direction, or in the places totally doing things that your conscience condemns you. Your basic common sense should inform you that's the wrong place to be, wrong standing. This is interesting how man, then there are some certain wake up and, said, the conscience cannot allow to go on. They did some reflection on things and give a list of why they were lured, numbed into such a position. Interesting disclosure of human nature again, aligned with this. But I want to read this as a moral lesson and a spiritual lesson for us to. The Bible very clearly said, do not let our human nature, our human thoughts be deceived in such a way. Because you think about the original sin, okay? Why Adam said, it's okay. Wife was not really doing a terrible bad thing. She did it anyway, so I just might tag along. I just might tag along. And God said, no, you tag along. It's not going to make any difference for me. When I said this is wrong, this is going to invoke a work of death in your life. Well, that's the sinners. Oftentimes, we all have sin, but the greatest sin is the self-justification. Justify away sin. Rather said, oh, the sin I sinned, my conscience is not clean, but I know I have to repent. I'm not going to deny the truth, however. Don't pervert my tongue, pervert my heart, my mind. I'm not going to carry it up and say it's not sin. It's not, it's not, it's okay, or it's good even. Paul in 1st and 2 chapter Romans speaking about the reprobate mind. Those are very smart people. They're even lawyers, legal counsels, judges, whatever. They're supposed to rule the nation. They tell the nation how to do things right. But their mind are reprobate. The mind reprobate. And they claim God's name. Some even said, I'm doing work for God. Nonsense. God don't need reprobate mind. They're doing things for their own ambition, their own position, their own ideas. But that's the delusion of the Christianity today, is to fall into even agree with them, justify them. Yeah, they are trying to do God's work to fight against evil. With a reprobate mind, with unclean conscience, with illegal ways, how deceived we have become. But it's accommodated today. Don't criticize. Don't talk about it. Just be silent and let this pass. This is going to pass. Pass where? The whole nation is downfall. Pass where? When all things is darkened and perverted. So there's no way man of righteousness, man of plain and good character can even have a voice. That is unbecoming. But that's where our society is standing. When you read with me, we're not interested in merely read the scriptures, go through motions. We want to learn serious lessons in life. Please read with me Psalm 1, or read it and comment on it a little bit.
All right. Let me. I have my Bible and my phone.
That's okay. Jumble around a little bit. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I use my Bible for this one.
You don't think I'm critical or cynical to the world, am I? So I hope I'm not. So yeah. I'm just being objective about things. This is terrible. God's name is defiled and blasphemed because such a people. Yeah.
Blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, or stand in the way of sinners, or sit in the seat of mockers.
Now there you go. Are they representing God? Are they the hope for Christian nation? Are you killing me? Bunch of nonsense. They don't even have a simple honesty and the courage to look in their own heart, to examine their own ways. It's a betrayal of God. Betrayal even, the founding principle of this nation. Go ahead. Betrayal to their own person, maybe, especially in the name of God. What are you talking about? Anyway, go ahead.
But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever he does prospers. Not so the wicked.
Look at the wicked, the
They are
way.
like chaff.
Yeah. They flourish for a while. They're nowhere to be found. This Christian's gonna have a 4 year, a decade, a little bit stirring up like a foam on the ocean. Then eventually a wave comes around. They're nowhere to be found. Oh, how foolish they are. Those noisy ones, agitated ones. You know, I mean, where are the processes? Where are the teachings? Where are the vision for Lord? Where are the passions? It's a shame. But they were the major drivers of supporting those kind of discourse and movements in this nation. It's very, very damaging for us as God's people. So actually, it's a very reason we'll be smeared, persecuted, eventually lost credibility and lost the favor of the Lord. Move on.
They are like chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish.
God hate wickedness. God hate perversion. Anyway, 10:44. I want to continue to read. So.
All right, let's see here.
We do not suppose.
Yes, that's right. We do not suppose that Joseph was meant to be, in the accurate sense of the word, a type of Christ. But the coincidence is not to be passed by, that these same powerful motives of envy and of greed were combined in his case too, and that there again a Judas, appears as the agent of the perfidy.
Perfidy, what that word means. He used a lot of strange words, huh? It's very interesting. So, perfect treachery. Oh, wow.
We may note that the appearance of the traders in the nick of time, suggesting the sale of Joseph, points the familiar lesson that the opportunity to do ill deeds often makes ill deeds done. The path for entering on evil is made fatally easy at first. That gate always stands wide. The devil knows how to time his approaches. A weak nature, with an evil bias in it, finds everywhere occasions and suggestions to do wrong. But it is the evil nature which makes innocent things opportunities for evil. Therefore, we have to be on our guard, as knowing that if we fall, it is not circumstances, but ourselves that made stumbling blocks out of what might have been stepping stones.
What an insight. This author has a lot wisdom, am I? So amazing, actually. So go ahead.
4. Leaving Joseph to pursue his sad journey, our narrative introduces for the first time Reuben, whose counsel, as the verses before the text tell us, it had been to cast the poor lad into the cistern. His motive had been altogether good. He wished to save life, and as soon as the others were out of the way, to bring Joseph up again and get him safely back to Jacob. In chapter 22, Reuben himself reminds his brothers of what had passed. There he says that he had besought them not to sin against the child, which naturally implies that he had wished them to do nothing to him, and that they would not hear. In the verses before the text, he proposes the compromise of the pit, and the others hear. So there seem to have been two efforts made by him. First, to shield Joseph from any harm, and then that half and half measure which was adopted. He is absent while they carry out the plan, and from the cruel merriment of the feast, perhaps watching his opportunity to rescue, perhaps in sickness of heart and protest against the deed. well meant and kindly motived as his action was, and self sacrificing too, if, as is probable, Joseph was meant by Jacob as his successor and the forfeited birthright, his scheme breaks down as attempts to mitigate evil by compliance and to make compromises with sinners usually do. The only one of the family who had some virtue in him was too timid to take up a position of uncompromising condemnation. He thought it more polite to go part of the way and to trust to being able to prevent the worst. That is always a dangerous experiment. It is often tried still. It never answers.
Why is it
When a man's
dangerous?
standard
Why
of
is it
guns,
dangerous experiment? Can you expound a little bit? Why is the assessment here's a dangerous experiment?
I think doing things with a half-heartedness. Well, I mean, let's see. I don't know. It's kind of a broad statement. I don't know if there's a particular answer to that question.
I think those kind of compromising unclear ways, there's no standard, no principle. And in the heart, am I in the way how carry things? Always in wide strife, evil, and confusion. Eventually lost any ability to bring good things or orderly things into existence. Making sense here? So according to later days, we can see Robin actually is a very, the character is very problematic. He actually defiled his father's bed. That is some terrible mistake. You can see there's a man of no principle. There's no standing. There are things you can do. There are things you cannot do. And this man seems to have a good heart. Most likely has a very tender heart to many people. Likable at least. And even everybody would say that's a good man. I think the man is, very lovely in terms of character. It's a way, how he handle relationships. But, what have you? And a man don't, as an elder, the eldest brother, you don't let young brothers kill and try to kill your younger brother try to kill the little brother, one of the little brothers. As a son, you don't defile the bed of your father. Those are basics of life. The basic principles. And those occasions call you to absolutely make a stand. More than that, don't even entertain those thoughts. But obviously, in all those major rules occasions, he was totally relaxed. Not only relaxed, he don't even careless about it. It's not even enter his mind to make a decision on those things. Now, in life, Noah, don't ever be friends with such people. You understand what I'm saying to you? They will destroy your life. Unprincipled people will lead you astray. More than that, they're going to produce a life in you so full of disarray and sin and sorrow and huge, terrible consequences. And such people will often publicly declare their innocence. I'm not responsible. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. What are you talking about? You're the older brother. You're a son to your father. You have a responsibility, a basic starting point to exercise those standing in life. But this man was a totally failure, a weakling in terms of character. There's no sense of accountability, responsibility. He is not trustworthy. Therefore, it's bring a lot of grievances through his lack of volunteer or help the father. He tried to help, but it's not helpful. You understand what I'm trying to say to you? So, now, do never work and partner with other people in major decisions, especially godly things in life. That's a must not. Okay? You understand my point? So because he won't defile everything, ruin everything, and eventually walk in God's judgment, even wrath on things you do. It's like unclean, totally defiled. It's a perversion, basically. Perversion. But in the way he said, I'm innocent, don't blame me, So they did that. Who said that? Adam said that. And God said, Adam, let's really think about this. So let's really think about it. You're doing the devil's work here. And you can't tell me you're innocent. So I want you to pray on this part. So, yeah.
Yes, sir. I do pray that we would be firm and Lord, would strongly adhere to the standards that you have given us in life. Lord, that they would be ever straight and resolute in our hearts and our minds. But may this particularly be the case in our fellowship and interaction and relationships with other people. Lord, and also to the words that come out of our mouths and the actions that we do and the thoughts of our heart and mind. Lord, these are things that can always be prayed, Lord, but even more so, may we seek to solidify them in our lives through practice. And this way would put into practice and would further acquire wisdom in life. Lord, this has always been a great desire in my heart. Lord, may it be a desire in each one of those that you have called as your people. Or to never waver in these things, never be half-hearted in what is done, Lord, to compromise in certain circumstances and situations in life. Lord, but may we always, Lord, be firm and resolute, Lord, in the decisions we make in life, Lord, while of course being nonetheless applicable to your spirit, Lord, to discipline our minds when needed, Lord. And I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
You want to hear some extra text story? Has the imagery. It came to me. You're a musician. You must. We're going to stop there. Next time, read on from 5 point on. Okay, put a bookmark there. The story was in the back end. I watched Karajan, the conductor, am I right? So remember that? Bernstein, but Karajan. And he would, he conduct a lot of things. The guy conducted for the play called the West Side Story. You know that? You know that character, right? So yeah, one of the most important conductor in our modern times. So anyway, so he was doing rehearsal. On 2 occasions I saw him almost lost in temper, driven by crazy by different ones on his team. He was a conductor, had to tell us what to do. So one guy rose out from what is it called? I don't know. In the band called the Violet. I don't quite remember the word. He's a violin player. So he always missing something. Missing the beat. To me, it plays beautifully. So I can't discern. But every time he was stop there, and so they had to stop because he offered the beat a little bit, and so we're hard to discern, So and it's to do with the interpretation of the original music. So Karen pointed out, no, I think he's pretty hard, something of the nature. And the guy, he disagreed, So he always plays his own tune, basically. And so Karen said, why you can't just do what I told you to do? So the guy said, no, I think the music should be read in this way. I play right, So, and Karen said, basically, I don't quite remember the detail. Basically said, no, it's wrong. You read it wrong. A little bit blonde. No, I think I'm read it right. In between all the team members. I mean, in the conducting rehearsal session, he said that obviously Karen was a guest conductor, is not his own team. He come there just play with us, conducting them. No, you just, okay, that's okay, but can you just do what I told you to do? The guy, I don't quite remember the case. He was very unhappy. He made a big thing. I think he either walk away or something, So, the conductor was very patient, but at the same time was straightforward. He said, "I want you to play the way I want to play," So, anyway, the other occasion was this lady was Sprenza, whatever the word, singing by herself. She was singing, and she just singing either too fast or slow. I don't quite remember, but she just like every time missing it, and the Karen would stop her, try to tell her basically this is not certain ways. And the singer was very excellent. She sings beautifully, but just has to do pacing of things, so fast or slow. They call the tempo or something like that. And so she protests, so she's like, I was sing this way. It's like the whole band was playing a different tempo. She sings her own bass, So Karen was like scratching her head. She's a young lady, I mean, he literally had a hard time to get through that lady. That lady was so stubborn, She said, I'm doing right. I'm doing, You guys must follow my tempo, So, what I'm trying to get at is there are certain mindsets like Robin, like the Song 1 talking about that there are people they was missing something in their life, and they never think it's wrong. They never think is the way approaching life in this attitudes, in this self-assigned order or approach. You may do things very perfect, and in your own side is totally innocent, right? But God is not there, as here the story stated. Jacob, as much as he loved God, wanted God, but he never have really reached up under the oversight Isaac for the big part of his life, missing the fatherly impartation there. He ran away 20 years later, carry family back to the world, try to recover the covenant. He don't know how to do it. Misses the whole time, allow his family roams. Just like Laban's family or the family around the land will do, called the Shechem, they were there. And there's a lot of grievances. Aftermath happened. Eventually, everything thought God going to bless him with, and through Rachel and this beloved son, going to continue the family tradition in the favor of God, is put into jeopardy. I mean, by a slim thread, God was able to continue. So what God teaching us here in this lesson of Joseph is when man try to, in their own faculty, in their own scheming or mechanism, what is the word they call it? I don't quite remember the good word to do it. Just try to do things God's promised, like Adam and Eve, right? Try to do things God gives that only God can help to accomplish. It delights to help us, to bless us with that. In their own ways, in their own wisdom, in their own strength. They destroyed everything. It sold everything. Even put God's promise as the last seeming thread. Can you imagine Jacob's sorrow and pain after he led the family to such a point that eventually the son of his heir, his beloved, he wanted to continue God's covenant with, totally disappeared from his side. He has no opportunity to train that son, to raise that son up in his own household as a beloved father. I mean, he suffered the same terrible sorrow, heart aching pain as he was. He was gone when he grew up, am I right? He was not in the father's care, love. I'm talking to Isaac. Now here, his beloved son again suffered the same fate. And he never, until much later, reckoned the sin as a father or as a son was not able really to upheld a certain culture evidently that was a blessing passed on through Abraham with his relationship secured with Father Abraham and his son Isaac. He never understood and received the endowment. So they had to start again by themselves. God was merciful and faithful, but you can imagine Joseph had to start it over again in an alien land. His family all around. Even he won't do things, worship God, he does not have a lot of freedom to do that until much later on, so and so my point, little bit of sin, little bit of claim innocence, and then get the whole family and your whole passion, vision suffer. Almost destroyed everything you work for. Can you believe that? That's terrible. As a young man, seems a heavy topic, a severe topic. That's what the Bible is about. So the patriarchs, the former generations, from the very beginning, the Bible tells to teach such a thing to young people. Teach it. Moses' law was meant to be a life education for young people to grow up in godliness, in godly, become a family of a God fear and a blessing rather than sorrow, sin, and dissipation. Making sense to you? With that, why don't you wrap it up for us? You as a young man and a young generation, a leadership young generation, a father going to be for the coming generations, and many in your generation. Those are the things. It's not intellectual point. It's the real things of life, and those are the things we want to register and don't think those topic uncomfortable or alien, rather than much needed in the formative years of our life. Making sense to you? So yeah, we need to pray and ramp up for us.
And yes, Lord, I do pray that these things would be heavy upon my heart, Lord, not as a Lord, an overbearing burden, Lord, but as a burden that you yourself have placed, Lord, upon my shoulders, Lord, to consider, Lord, as the days ahead, Lord, draw closer, Lord, and the season that we are in now, Lord, you are teaching us so many things, Lord, preparing us for so much, Lord. We have but Lord, but a small look into what the future truly holds. Lord, you have given us many, even very clear visions, Lord, of the things that you have set before your people. Lord, but you ask us to turn our eyes and our hearts to you, Lord, in trust and the fruit of that trust and faith, Lord, which is obedience, Lord, that we may be ready for what you have in store for us. Lord, being able to see, Lord, through your eyes and according to your perspective, Lord, from the height of your vision, Lord, these things are only things that can bring us joy, Lord, but looking at them from, Lord, an earthly perspective, Lord, Lord, as many yet hold, Lord, it would be something that could bring us fear, Lord, or even disappointment. So, Lord, maybe in may, in this sense, Lord, we ascend, Lord, to a higher place of viewing our own lives and the destinies that you have set for each one of us and for your body and even this community. Lord, I pray that we, again, would be resolute and confident, Lord, in our walk with you. Lord, to go through both the highs and the lows of life, Lord, with a continuous faith and obedience to your Spirit. And I pray that above all we would walk with a spiritual mode of mind and of heart. Lord, that we would continue to learn to interact with one another in this way, and thereby be seen by others as a set apart people, or that function on a completely different plane. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hallelujah. What's next, Noah? So, sorry, I had to reply
That's okay.
few things. John was talking about the bidding things. I had to give you authorize him to pay things. So get them done.